Very good evening to you all. Hope you're doing well. This is the COT data video for the week beginning the 23rd of September. Kristen has done this for us on a Saturday, so it gives us all of Sunday to digest this information. Now, there is one thing that I need to say for this week coming up, is that we are pretty much neck and neck on the sentiment, technical and fundamental scores on the QDB scores on our spreadsheet. All right, so pretty much even Stevens, with the exception of euro. Perhaps you could argue that's slightly weaker than the rest. The dollar is weaker of the bunch, and the yen is actually considerably weak. Now we have to remember this takes into account technical. So are we above the pivots? Did we close above the daily open, the weekly open? On the sentiment side of things, are they short? Are they long? Did they add short? Did they add long? Are they getting paid? Are they getting punished? That's a core aspect to the sentiment, because if the retail guys get paid on one particular instrument, we should see reversals. And on the fundamental side of things, it takes into account unemployment, the GDP, the inflation, and the country's economic data, and also the change as well from prior. So it's a very, very powerful metric that you see on the right-hand side. It takes into account all that data, and we can see we're quite even across the board with a potentially weak USD and a weak yen, okay? Which is of note, because if you look at the COT data, the yen has really pumped. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy there where yen could be quite tricky. Potentially, okay. Remember, this data on the left-hand side is from Tuesday, and of course we had the BOJ, and we had some UADA comments about holding, holding and waiting to see before they do anything. So that was quite dovish, and that sent the yen down quite a bit, and cross yen really pumped. I think we had like a 200 pip move after the speech. So we had the Fed interest rate decision with the 50 basis point cuts, which was forecast, and it was in line with expectations. And so there's the move on the USD. Also, interestingly, the euro has ticked down as well. Now, as we go through the COT data, you'll see a lot of things are giving us mixed signals. Likewise with this, we haven't really got a strong signal per se. Perhaps you could look for dollar weakness. Perhaps you could look for yen weakness, but the thing with the yen, there's a discrepancy between this and what I'm about to show you. So if we come to the yen, for example, it's really pumped. So the banks and institutions are long yen. However, on the QDB scores, we've got poor data. We've got data to back up some poor performance on the yen. Okay, so there's the yen, really pumped, and we've actually increased from the week prior, 55 to 56. Okay, so that's of note. So be careful with yen, I think. Okay, you could probably argue the QDB scores are more powerful than the COT data, to be fair, because this takes into account multiple aspects, and this just takes into account the bank positions. But they'd be looking at the fundamentals as well, which makes me wary about this yen trade. So let's wait and see. Aussie on, euro off. Aussie dumped. So that's fair enough. So we had the dump on the USD, we had the dump on the euro, and also Aussie. We have a look at the pound, and you probably find it's done something similar. So there's that. Okay, so if we get the crossover, we could have pound yen sell, because the yen is getting bought, the pound's getting sold. So we could have a crossover there for GJ sell. Okay, so a little bit of a mixed report currently. CAD. Yeah, just went slightly sideways from the week prior. If you remember last week, it didn't do anything at all, and now we just slightly decreased. So things are in descent on the COT data. So the banks, institutions are just perhaps quite uncertain. And there's gold. So we had an all-time high. Hopefully you weren't short. They heard are very short. They added. We had a shakeout attempt on Thursday, I think it was, and that shakeout attempt is scary enough for them to exit their short, but they didn't. They held short and they added. So what's going to happen is that it's probably going to continue higher until they've got blown up, and we're going to talk about like a mass margin call scenario. So probably the one of the cruelest squeezes you're likely going to see, perhaps in your lifetimes, because of the sentiment and the COT data. They're basically indicating the higher due to the sentiment and also the bank position. So be careful. I'll show you the gold shakeout attempt, so you see what I mean. Just go into Discord, and where are we? Yeah, here. Let me grab this. Okay. So that move there, back in the old days, if we go back 10 years, that move there would have caused them to get out. That would have got them stopped out, and then this would have fallen. Okay, but the fact is that we had this big pump, this really, really aggressive pump, and they added short on it. So initially they got paid a little bit, but of course the market isn't going to allow them to profit. And then they added short again. And look at the price then, 2587. And then look at Imran's analysis. Oh, wow. Right, so the fact that they added short results to this. Right, it's very, very key that you understand how the sentiment works. And you can see the COT data's pumped as well. So don't be on the wrong side of it. Look at your sentiment. Okay, it's really, really important. Gold off, New Zealand dollar on. And how are we looking? Just slightly sideways, nothing to talk about there. We could have the NU long potentially because the USD is getting sold off. The Kiwi is just going slightly sideways, just about. Yeah, just negative, aren't we? Just. So there's a potential scenario. So we could have a GJ sell, we could have an NU long, but we have to wait for the crossovers, okay? There isn't an alternative to Patreon because Patreon does the handshake at Discord. So you need to be a member of Patreon, otherwise the Discord doesn't know who you are. So that's the the answer to that question. New Zealand dollar off, and then we'll look at Swiss franc, and we'll close the video. Then I'll respond to that question. How are we looking? Yeah, we're positive. We're going slightly positive, aren't we, on the Swiss franc, and we've got a good score on the QB score. So a lot of things are in descent. We've got a lot of things like we could be going slightly sideways on these permutations. So, for example, the Euro Swiss might be a bit choppy. The CAD pound could be a bit choppy. You see the 10 score versus 10 score. So the pound CAD would be a little bit wishy-washy potentially this week, and we're going to see a big battle. I think we should see some of these move. I think, and currently I think it might be aiming for dollar weakness and yen weakness. So this sets up for a risk on week potentially. And if you're trading indices, remember to check your sentiment and anything like gold or commodities or anything like that. And just be sure that you're on the right side. If you're not sure, you can let me know and then I can help you. Okay, so it's basically we're looking at 50%. If they're above 50%, they're long. If they're below 50%, they're short. And if you stay on the other side of the herd, you'll tend to do okay. So there's today's COT video, and I wish you a good weekend, and I'll speak to you soon.